Hello and welcome to the Glenfiddich Challengers Club podcast, coming to you from the mother city, Cape Town. We've been on a journey this year, a journey that began in Johannesburg, took us to the shores of Durban, and now comes to you live from the mother city, Cape Town. Beyond the places we've been, it's also been a discovery of what makes a challenger, what defines them from the rest, and what fuels their purpose. The Glenfiddich Challengers Club is a space of shared opinion, views and perspectives of success, brought to you by Glenfiddich, the world's most awarded single malt Scotch whiskey. Over the next week, we'll be diving into discussion with some of South Africa's most intriguing minds, with a curated panel of changemakers and visionaries in a forum designed to inspire, equip and motivate the next generation. Welcome to the Challengers Club. So we are here once again. It's the Glenfiddich Challengers Club. We are having an amazing evening, a selection of really incredible people, and I'm looking forward to another really engaging session tonight on amongst some of the pillars that people believe are important pillars to have on their journeys to success, whatever success is to you. So welcome once again. And tonight we are talking about breaking the rules and how a challenger, which is everybody in this room tonight, has done that in the quest of achieving whatever it is they're trying to achieve. Whether it's to be the most creative person under the sun, whether it's to be the first person to the ball, or the first person to summit whatever the mountain is that they're climbing. So breaking the rules, where that fits in to your story as a challenger. And ultimately how breaking the rules can be some sort of a catalyst, a vehicle in things like creativity, challenging the norm, challenging convention. So let's look into that. I love the fact that I would assume, just based on people's backgrounds, that a lot of you are more right-brained people, or left. Only one lefty, that's fine. But essentially it's great because this is the kind of discussion that I think is going to really just get the best out of us. So let's, while we let the topic sink in, go around the room and just get a bit of a quick intro as to who is in the room and who the challengers are for tonight. I will start with the gentleman on my left.
Hello, my name is Jason Besson and I'm the Group Fashion Director for Condé Nast.
Beautiful, welcome.
Thank you.
Next.
Hello, my name is Rich Mnisi. I am a creative director and I started out my brand as a fashion designer and then moved into furniture.
Beautiful.
Hi there, my name is Edwin and I work in retail, also starting my own business soon. Yeah.
Soon and very soon. Great.
Yeah. Nice. My name is Aubrey Mnisi. I'm a technology entrepreneur, CEO. Yes, sir. One of Rich's cousins. I'm a CEO of a company called Sensorit.io. CTO at Snake Nation. I'm co-founder and investor at Black Unicorns. I'm co-founder and product manager at Sui.io.
Carl Carter, CEO Snake Nation, co-founder Black Unicorns. Happy to be here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Vincent Manzini, aka Sir Vincent, DJ, producer, entrepreneur, a co-founder of Blank Canvas. Happy to be here.
I'm Tara Neves. I'm a ex-cosmetic house brand manager.
Hey guys, my name is Fred Rode. I'm the CEO of Heavy Chef, and it's a education platform for entrepreneurs.
I'm Nosi Chazani, Digital Social Experiential Manager at Rain, South Africa.
Hi guys, I'm Bubele Mankula. I'm a partner at Stungas Gas. We basically distribute paraffin and gas throughout all locations, and yeah, that's it.
Hi guys, I'm Brad Ndlovu, and I own 4W Marketing and Experiential Agency.
Lutando Jazz Dibini, I'm brand ambassador for Glenfiddich.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for joining us, and I know that we're going to have a really good one tonight. So I have to start with the simple question, the importance of breaking rules, and by extension, what these rules are and what they've done to shape the society we know and understand to be our reality. I'm going to start with Nosipo. When somebody says you got to break the rules in order to, shine from, everyone else, to be different or stand out, what is your understanding of that?
It's simple. I think when every black diamond or every black child in Cape Town wants to make it big, they always have the dream of moving to the big apple that is Johannesburg. And I and many of my friends around the table decided to stay in Cape Town and make a name for ourselves, because I think if you can make it in the city of Cape Town, you can make it anywhere. And it's hard. I think to make it into the European and white industries of Cape Town, you've really got to be a person with balls, even as a female. I think as a female marketing expert in Cape Town particularly, it's really hard to be invited to meetings, and you've really now got to change from doing marketing as a woman would do marketing and kind of play with the big boys, because if you're not playing with the big boys, if you're not getting out of your comfort zone, you will eventually get on that flight outside of Cape Town to Joburg, and basically you just go into the flow and normalize yourself. So I took the conscious decision of crying, praying, namasteing, and just for 9 years trying to groom myself and to tell myself that every no is a no, and every no is just another step in another direction, I guess.
But it must take something for you to, be able to do that, because the thing about breaking rules is that you're going to upset someone.
Yeah.
Sometimes you upset yourself because you challenge your own thinking based on whatever frame of reference you have in terms of the way you're raised or what sort of information you've been gathering over the years. So how do you get to that point where you feel you've got the balls, as you put it, to say, no, actually, this is what I'm doing and whatever to anything else?
Find yourself a mentor. Find yourself a soundboard. Find yourself someone who's walked this path that you want to walk. You may not walk in the same familiar footsteps, because you're not supposed to carbon copy Jay-Z's or Ciara's prayer. You make your own prototype from something that's been there. So I would say my mentor, Sue Little, has done the best that she could do in social media. But I have copied her way, but I've also kind of built on that to become who I am today and to become a household name.
That's a very interesting thing, and I'm going to bring Richard in, partly because of your background as well, in the creative fields. The importance of breaking the rules. Can you actually break rules without, stepping on anybody's toes, least of all your own? And people say, well, in order to be creative, you have to break rules. Is it really the case in your experience? Can't you just be creative in jail without having to break rules?
I wish that would be the case, but I think immediately you step into something, like creating something new, it's very unfamiliar to people. So default, you're already stepping on people's toes. You're now challenging them to unthink things they've known their entire lives and stuff like that. So yeah, it is a tough task. I guess especially for what I do, especially from a queer perspective, speaking to like a very conservative market, which is like South Africa and Africa, very conservative people, and I'm literally exposing them to something that they've known exists, but they choose to ignore. So yeah, it's...
So then what becomes the key in selling a new idea to people who you have no idea whether or not they'll be warm to it? Is there any formula? Because like you say, that's been partly a lot of what you've experienced.
For me, well, when I started, because I can't speak and I can't necessarily articulate myself properly. I am a visual person, so it's presenting people with images that normalize things to them. So if there's a certain image, whether it's two women holding hands, if they are unfamiliar with that image or choose to ignore it, you just present it to them in familiar spaces where they grew up or where they work, and as they keep seeing it, when they see it again in that same space, it doesn't offend them. So
right. So pulling the right strings, and finding that connection, which is not always easy. Jason, you are like putting your hand up. You want to say something. Which point do you want to respond to?
So a few of them. I think when I think of rule breaking, I always kind of think of the art world. So like someone like Picasso, for instance, is always kind of remembered for his cubist work, but people often don't kind of remember that before that he was a photorealistic drawing, like whatever person. He could draw a picture that looked exactly like what was in front of him. So he had to learn the craft, the rules first, so that he could break them. So, and that he could do it in his way and have the clout or the sort of kind of skill. So I think when I think in the context of addressing youth in the country, I always say to people, like, fully understand your craft, fully, like, whatever, digest it, make it part of you so that you can break rules within whatever you're doing in a way that has true kind of craft. I think beyond that also, like, so my mother always used to say to me, like, if you want to talk to a fish, you have to wear a wetsuit. So I think in that context too, like, you know, in a lot of these industries and environments where you kind of want to change things and reshape things, there is a part of you that still has to kind of do the formalities and accept that this is the climate that we're in. So put on a wetsuit, go talk to the fish, and then convince the fish that he needs to go and walk on the land. You know, that kind of thing.
Fred, you were kind of also agreeing with some points that Jason was making. And also just, you know, when you look at the concept of convention and reality and the environments that we're all raised in, the environment that exists, and having to convince people of certain ideas. As somebody who's worked with a lot of entrepreneurs, being an entrepreneur yourself, how does this whole story around, you know, challenging convention fit into your world?
Well, I mean, first of all, I liked what you said, Jason. I love the analogy of Picasso. I think that one of my favorite quotes is that when Picasso was, I think he was quite late in his career, he was painting two paintings a day, and he was selling them for obscene amounts of money, and people, the art world and all the critics were just going nuts and going like, how can you do that? This is sacrilege. Like, there's people with far more talent and whatnot. And his quote was, you know, when I was a child I could draw like Raphael, but it took me 50 years to learn how to draw like a child or to paint like a child, right? So there's a rule breaking that's inherent in the creative process. And I think there's something about that spirit that's channeled within all entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are the original rule breakers, right? These guys just, they look at rules and they want to break them. There's something that's baked into the DNA of an entrepreneur that it stands to your favor if you don't abide by the laws. And if you look at things that the way they are, you have this compulsion to want to tear it down with, I agree with you, an understanding of how things work in order to make it better. And often a lot of the greatest innovations have been forged by people who come from outside looking in. You know, it's a challenger.
But where does it come from? Because, I mean, are we all born as rule breakers? Is it, you know, something that we all have? It's a chip somewhere inside of it? Or is it shaped by the environments and the societies that we have lived in, or even maybe traveling? And I think, Taryn, maybe you can help us unpack that one a bit, because you spoke a bit about, you know, having a background in different spheres, and maybe it's got to do with exposure as well, this idea of rule breaking. So how does that fit into your world and how you've traveled your own journey?
Definitely. I watched Steve Harvey once, and he said that each human being has a gift that we're all destined to use. And it's up to you as a human being to find out what that gift is and pursue it. So some of you, I believe, have found your gift already. I'm 27 and I'm still looking for my gift. I went to Dubai for 3 years, stayed over there, and obviously felt that that wasn't for me, the environment wasn't for me, you know, society wasn't for me. So I broke the rules in a sense of I studied a certain thing, you know, in Cape Town, and then went to pursue another in Dubai and found out that that wasn't for me, and then I'm back here again. So like I said, we're all born with a gift. It's just up to you to find out what it is exactly.
I mean, it's interesting you bring that up, because we are told so often, find a career and build yourself in that career, stick to it. and put everything into it, which is okay if you are going to be brilliant at it, and maybe that's what makes you tick. But sometimes it is not always the case. But again, is it easy to break rules in other industries? For example, maybe in the creative it might be easier because maybe people are a lot more understanding of the idea. Bubele, you spoke about your background professionally. You can mix that up with your own personal experiences as well. Is it easy to break the rules, and have you found it to be so in your experience?
Okay, well, personally, in my situation, I think breaking the rules is the stepping stone, was the stepping stone to my journey. Because in my situation, I had a permanent job. Well, I recently became permanent. I was in an editing company. I was a video editor. And to break the rules is more like getting up out of your comfort zone and starting something, breaking into unfamiliar territory. As Richard said previously, you basically trying to change people's minds to what they're accustomed to all their lives. So with me, it was a situation is I'm stuck in this job, and in all honesty, I didn't enjoy it. I really didn't enjoy it, but it paid the bills. So now I'm faced with a situation is, will I be stuck in this all my whole life, paying the bills, fine, living life through comfortably, or will I do what I want to do? So I decided, okay, let me quit it, take all this little package that I have, accumulated through the years, and start this new venture. And I wouldn't say it turned out well because it's just starting off, but so far so good. So basically breaking the rules within the rules is a good thing.
That's interesting. And Carl, I want to bring you in here and also maybe put you on the spot. I mean, who came up with these rules, right? Why do we have to follow them, stick to them? Why are they even there to be broken in the first place?
Yeah, it's funny when you was just saying that's what I was thinking, because I think any time that an entrepreneur or anybody that's challenging rules is because the rules are made for those that benefit from whatever the structures are, right? So, some of the things we were talking about, like looking at like cannabis, for example, and looking how cannabis is evolving. So we look at every single industry kind of the same way. Like a lot of the rules are meant to benefit those that are the incumbents. And so incumbents come on, at some point they're upstarts, and at some point they're able to craft laws that benefit them, and then X amount of years go by. And so I think we're kind of in that same sort of wave, at least it feels like to me, where you're really interesting periods of things that are happening and different industries are evolving, but the pattern is the same, which is like, oh, wow, there's something that's kind of outdated that doesn't really meld with like where the younger generation is going, or being a digital native or any of that. Doesn't really line up to like this sort of respect for the status quo. And frankly, I think it'll be difficult if we were just to play by everybody else's rules to be a competitor or a challenger. I think it's the guerrilla warfare aspect of that business that makes it like okay, like expected that we should be scrappier, different, whatever it may be, because that's our unique benefit.
But I mean, is it about breaking some rules and not others? Especially since you're in business. Can you go into business and just break all the rules?
No, of course not. I think on some level it is like the customary wisdom, right? And then there's like a strategic, like that doesn't benefit me, so we're not going to look at that one. Or how do I sort of tip the line? But I think it's absolutely about sort of challenging, like what is the status quo? Because I think especially if you're trying to be a startup or upstart, like, you have to absolutely understand where everyone else is, and then how you play your cards. Yeah.
I don't even like this word breaking rules because it feels like you're doing something wrong, right? Aubrey, I want to bring you in here because I feel, just based on your story, if you didn't break rules or challenge convention, that you wouldn't have achieved anything that you've achieved. So just challenging convention, how has that been a benefit to you at a personal level and at a business level as well?
I mean, for me, as someone that's quite passionate about the law of elimination, breaking the rules actually, I think I see it as a very critical component in anyone succeeding, because when you're breaking the rules, for me, you literally step closer to succeeding in what you're doing, because what that means to me is that you are literally putting yourself in a position where you aren't particularly exposed to conventional circumstances, So as a result, you somewhat draft your entire, I'm in execution as well as just result overall, you know. So I think for anyone to succeed, you know, I mean, I studied accounting, for example, you know, and I understood very well, like for instance, what Jason said, that it's always good when you understand the situation or, you know, just like the position you have overall. So I saw it clear that it won't take me to where I want to go as a person, you know. Literally did 2 weeks of accounting work in the industry. Then I was like, you know what, maybe that's not for me. I'm more technical as a person. Let me explore learning software engineering. So for me, I think rules never really existed in a way, you know. I mean, Carl knows me, like we worked, and Vince, we worked together very like often. We always position ourselves in a state where we create our own rules, you know. In that way, by us creating our own rules, we increase the chance of success.
Mm-hmm. Bradley, there's sometimes a set way of doing things because it works. So when you bring that into the fold of challenging convention, how then do you strike a healthy balance between, you know, doing something because it works and going out there and taking risks, doing something in a different way, even being disruptive?
I think like a lot of that has to do with discipline and self-belief, because I don't think you ever want to do anything that you yourself don't trust yourself in or believe in. So I think in breaking the rules and challenging the status quo, it's exactly that. Like the rules were set there to restrict you, and you as a person that believes in yourself or what you want to do, you look at that as an opportunity more than anything. So for my personal experience is that where I am today wasn't a well thought out process, calculated, manipulated on any way. It was just a fact of like where I am right now is not where I want to be, and whatever my intention is and whatever my drive is at the time will lead me, you know. So I think like when you do have a vision for your life, it pulls you, you know. You don't need no motivation, you don't need no formal structure or anything like that. I think there's a guide in a way and a belief where you just lean or gravitate towards.
Sometimes it sounds great when we talk about being, you know, those who disrupt and change things and challenge convention, but surely there must be a risk element to that. Nozipo, I know you had your hand up earlier, but I want to bring this to you. There must be a side to this challenging convention that perhaps doesn't look so rosy. What do you think that is?
It's we're breaking generational curses, guys. That's the thing that's happening. I think that when you come from a family of doctors, social workers, teachers, and whatever, and one day you decide, Mom, I want to be in marketing, and your mother doesn't have any clue on what marketing is, and she tells you that I don't care what you do, just study 12 years in school, 3 years in university, and then after that, you know, you always make a promise to your mother that, okay, fine, if I complete this, will you make me do this? And then after a while, you kind of get tired, and you get tired, and you get tired, and you get tired, and you're like, is it really worth me breaking generational curses? Should I rather just get married to the highest bidder in terms of lobola and just have babies and do this? And then after that, you become the black sheep of the family, because that's what you're doing. When you're breaking rules, you become, oh, Aisha, she's that girl who doesn't want to have kids. You know, she's 35 and she's single. Like, she's doing, like, I think if you want to be a groundbreaker or if you want to be a rule breaker, you've got to be ready for a lot of sleepless nights of crying.
Sure.
I've cried. I've been in the industry for 8 years. I've cried for 8.
And there's still more tears left,
There's
more
still
crying.
more left.
Because the journey's not done.
I mean, now we are millennials. Baby boomers are coming there, and they're much different. I won't lie. I do have a sense of anxiety that, you know, we paved the way, but the ones who are following after us are going to do so much better. And will I be around in the next 5 years?
Sure. And we'll come to the future in a moment. Edwin, I want to bring you in here as well, because I mean, yes, it's all good and well to, you know, to challenge, and there's perhaps the downside of it, as Nozipo pointed out, being a black sheep. Is it okay sometimes to be a black sheep? I mean, is it okay to be different? And where do you find yourself within that?
I'd say to be different is the best. It's literally the best, because with breaking like rules, if you're gonna have like rules, that's like a set path. you're basically following. So, sorry, Jason, same. Also getting nervous. Yeah, so it's like a set path, basically. That's what rules is. So when you're gonna like break that, it's obviously gonna make you automatically the black sheep in the family. People are gonna look at you differently, but that's better. You're gonna be the person at the end of the day that's gonna be at the back of yourself, be like, you can do this, you got this, tap your own back. Oh, you did amazing today. Yeah, you're crying now, but tomorrow you're making riches. That's how things work. So,
what are some of those sacrifices? There's a lot of tears in the room.
Yeah,
clearly this challenging convention thing is quite an exercise, pain and tears. What are some of those things that really are challenges when it comes to that for you?
For me, it was moving from home. Like, I was obviously, everyone had like plans for me, like, yeah, you're gonna become a police officer. I was like, you must be joking. I'm not doing that. Yeah, so basically what happened was, I woke up the one morning, I had an epiphany. I was like, I can't do this. I packed my bags, I told my mom, it's time to leave. I'm moving to Cape Town. And they all laughed at me. They thought it was a joke. 2 days later, I'm in Cape Town. And I feel like that's one of the sacrifices. Like, you have to leave people behind that don't believe in you.
That's such a powerful thing. And I know Jez has his own personal story of, jumping from one thing to the other, particularly with sacrifices. Let's get a bit deeper into that and your own personal experience, what those sacrifices were and whether they actually paid off, because sometimes we make decisions and we don't always make the right decisions because we think we have this epiphany or the light bulb moment. So how did it work out for you?
I don't even think I know. I come from a construction family. My dad has been part of Marion Roberts, so the only thing that he basically carved a path for me, that you are going to be a quantity surveyor. And then, I decided to choose a career in brand and marketing management, and that's how I ended up with Glenfiddich. And also, when I got here, I had to break many rules because, number one, if you look at my peers, they had 5 to 10 years experience in the industry. But what could make me different? So it meant that I needed to work harder, that's number one. I needed to believe in the fact that I didn't want to be a quantity surveyor. I want to be a creative rather. But then again, you cannot just want to be creative and not actually break those rules and come up with things that are different.
Because it's easy to say you're creative.
But that's why even today I can speak about the fingerprint. A lot of my peers can never speak about the accolades that I've done in the industry. I've gotten in, broken the rules, set my own path, and I said, I'm going to be Jazz the man.
So, on that note, I have to look to the future. And Fred, I'm going to bring you in here. And we'll go around the table. So, hands, by all means, I want to see them if you have a burning point. Do you think there's enough emphasis being put out there for young people in South Africa to be of the thinking that breaking the rules is the way to go? Thinking outside the box, if there is one, or outside going against the grain, as they say sometimes. Do you think there's enough emphasis on that in terms of what young people are being taught today, the knowledge that has been imparted upon them?
In a word, no. I don't believe that is the case. I think that we are... That's a really good question, by the way, but it's also quite a multifaceted question in the fact that when you talk about South Africa, there's so many different areas of South Africa and where you come from and the context within which you were raised is really important to answer that question. So I think that in general, like from an average perspective, I don't think that we are encouraged to break the rules. I think that, we live in quite a fear-filled environment at the moment. And so as a direct consequence of that fear, I think that we don't take enough of the positive risks that we should do. And I think there's a lot of rule breaking that we should be encouraging at the moment. And there's lots and lots of examples. But I can give you one in that, right now in the Eastern Cape, for example, I was involved with an education survey where we looked at education within rural areas and particularly in ECD, in early childhood development schools, where looking at the way schools are developed, there's actually some very solvable problems. And the reason why those problems, things like infrastructure and roofs and, the temperature within the classroom, which is obviously prohibitive if it's too cold, if it's too warm for a child to learn, and the food that they eat and so on and so forth. These are very technical, solvable problems, right? But they're not being solved because of the rules. And the rules are set in place to obviously preserve us and protect us and to, obviously, hopefully to make us thrive, but they're not. They're prohibitive because there's too much red tape that is preventing those technical problems being solved. And so it requires us to actually break the rules. But from a top-down perspective, those rules are not helping us at the moment. So it needs, and obviously the reason why I'm so invested in the entrepreneur space is because it's the entrepreneurs that are going to bypass and circumvent those rules and actually just go, you know what, we're going to get to the root of this.
Vincent, do you think the environments that a lot of young people find themselves in today are encouraging or not in, getting this culture going of challenging convention?
Look, I think to a degree, obviously for a few of us who've got access to information and internet, I think we're privy of that, so we've got a global view. We get information at the same time, so we happen to react quicker, But there's a large population, fortunately, in the township, in the rural areas where they're disadvantaged and they don't get the same advantage as us. So I don't think that it's a fair and a balanced environment for all. But I think that we can do more, and I believe each and every one of us sitting here as well, we've got a responsibility. I think that's why we're here even and conversating about this as well, because this is going to reach more people. It's going to spark thinking, and it's going to spark people to react and to do something about it and to create a fertile environment that's going to cultivate such shapeshifters. So I think it has begun, but I also think that there's great opportunity to do more and be more. And I think to each of us who know more should behave and act like we know more. And I think there's a gap there. That's what you're trying to bridge.
Also, the thing is that, yes, there is information, but it's still the information with the rules. And a lot of the times, people that are speaking on great innovations are in rooms like this, and that information is never heard. I mean, this lives on a different platform, but usually it's a closed room with people that think the same and giving each other information on how to expand their thoughts. So that information stays within certain people and enriches them, to be honest. And it's just it just goes in that loop and it never leaks, ever. This is the first time that I'm hearing of a conversation like this that is actually leaking to the public on a platform that they'll actually have access to. So yeah.
Sure. So the leaks are important. Aubrey, you wanted to say something as well?
Yeah, I mean, to a great extent, I'm not traditionally agreeing with some of the points that were mentioned. I mean, information is there, Access to information has always been there. If you look at countries with the fastest internet, with high device adoption, you find people still living in boxes, You find people, for instance, in places like Silicon Valley, where people are actually contributing to the internet more than consuming from the internet, They have a different mindset. So I think it's a societal thing, It's like, for instance, if you look at South Africa, it's like you meet an entrepreneur, hey, I have this idea, for example. If they know someone that does that idea, they'll be like, yo, you can't do that, because someone else is doing it as if it's not going to succeed if you're doing it, So I think it's more of a cultural thing as well as a societal thing. So in my take, South Africa is a very uniform society, People, they're if there's one, everyone thinks there's only one, Which is why, for instance, if you look in any industries, for instance, in the ones I'm in, all the companies out there, they're doing the same thing, because no one is trying to do anything different. So I think it's very much societal than it is than it is about access to information. You know.
Taryn, still on the same point around, it's, I don't know, getting young people to do something in this line of thinking. Because personally, I believe it's important to challenge convention. The world is set up because people challenge the rules. In some cases, the results were great. In other cases, the results were not. But I mean, here you are, you've lived in different parts of the world. The importance of just even exposure at that level in contributing towards some sort of inspiration behind one saying, hang on, I can do things differently and still achieve great things. What do you say to a young person based on your own personal experience?
Okay, so my advice is to anyone listening to this and they're not sure like where they want to be at, which career path they want to follow. I mean, they studied something, but they're not really feeling that vibe. I'd say take a leap in faith and, just follow your gut. My father still never gave me the yes to go to Dubai 3 years ago.
And you came back.
Look where I am. It was definitely challenging, but it made me know myself, grow to know myself, mature, I think, more quicker than I could have ever done, being in my comfort zone around my family, friends, and familiar faces. So for me, it's always good to take yourself out of your comfort zone, which at the end of the day is a challenge. It's breaking the rules, and it feels great, looking back from where I started to what I came out of or what I came home with. I never imagined that I would have gained so much knowledge, so much experience, met so many people, networked all around the world. And to be honest, like looking at other 27-year-olds, they all in marriages, have kids, and everyone's asking me when am I getting married. I'm single as can be, and I'm happy. I'm content with me. I think people need to understand that you need to be happy as a person in order to get happiness, so be happy with another person. I feel like that is also,
Sure. Jason, just adding to that, because I see you are also burning with the point you want to make.
I think following on from that, I think there's a lot of rules we can all break in life, but I think the most important and some of the most challenging ones are the ones we have about ourselves. And I think that, when I look at kind of the youth at the moment, and specifically around social media and everything, and think about how people are trying to kind of make themselves seen or be visible by breaking rules in certain ways, I sometimes question whether it's right or whether it's the right thing. Because for me, at the end of the day, it comes down to intention and presence, because you need to choose the rules you want to break, because they need to mean absolutely everything in the world to you. It has to be one of those, someone's holding your head underwater kind of situations and you want to come up for air, because that's when it's going to make a difference, and people will see you and be inspired by you through your presence, through what you do, not for the noise you're making. And I think if I just relate that to my personal experience in magazines, I mean, for instance, men's magazines around the world historically have been known for kind of representing women in a certain way and representing men in a certain way. And today that's not a healthy representation anymore. For me personally, my mother struggled, my mother is a victim of sexual violence. So that's an issue that's very close to my heart. So coming into a men's magazine space, that's something I've always wanted to kind of challenge from the roots up. And I think that I also have to acknowledge and understand that I can't go around telling men, this is wrong, you can't do this. You have to learn to deal with that in a slow way that is digestible for them. But it also, when I do it, it's coming from a space that I know means something. So that rule that I'm trying to challenge in the way that women are represented, or in the way that men are also represented, comes from a place of sincerity, and I know that someone out there that message will land.
Intention, that's key as well. Carl, you wanted to add something as well?
Yeah, it was funny when Taryn mentioned earlier, just sort of like stepping out there. I think, something maybe we don't talk about as often as entrepreneurs is like the element of faith, and I think, especially when you probably hit those moments where you're going against the grain and you're doing something that you sort of inherently feel called to do, whether or not that's like a personal stance, whether or not that's just like a career move, whatever it may be. I think you do hit that period where you're like, well, especially as an entrepreneur, no one's there to tell you you can't do it. Like, that's kind of the point, right? So there's this internal dialogue of being like, okay, well, should I do this? And so I think, when you have those moments where there aren't necessarily external markers as to why you should do a thing, a lot of it comes down to like your inherent faith in yourself, but then also whatever it is that you're there to do.
2 quick closing statements. I'm not picking on you. It's just maybe the way my eyes move. I'm going to go to Fred and Nozipo in that order. Future challenges. What do you say to that person now? They believe they have something in them. They're maybe not sure what it is, but they believe the world needs it.
I mean, I loved what Vincent said. I mean, Heavy Chef, the whole concept of the thing that I'm doing, right? It's eat your own food, learn by doing, right? I believe so strongly in this thing of I also agree about the idea of faith. There is a leap of faith that you got to do, because there's no way you've got to learn and then do, right? So there's so much resource out there that you can access and you can take on board, and then I think there's got to be a time where you got to take that leap of faith and break the rules and get out there and kind of stick your neck out, and it's scary, So to have a full understanding of that, I think is you need to have that up front, and then just do it anyway. And then, you push through and you figure it out, and that faith will get you through, And I think that, I loved what you're saying. We've never done this before. So there is a faith element to all of this stuff, and you're going to be okay. You will fail and you will get sore, and it's going to be painful, but you're going to be okay. Just learn, iterate, and then keep going.
Nosipo, final comment.
The world is like Netflix. You don't find the movie that you want, but somehow you're navigated into a genre of movies you may like. So you like helping people. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a doctor. You can be a social worker. You love speaking. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to be an actor. You can be on radio. You love making clothes. Hell, you can't design for your life, but maybe you're a good seamstress. I think if at first you don't succeed, look at another avenue. Sometimes you also need just some real people around you to remind you that, hey, yo, girl, you can sing. Dance. I think you need real people.
It sounds like personal experience. I don't know.
I have people all the time who tell me that you're not so great at this. Like, you're not so great at that, you're not so great at this. So hence I say the world is like Netflix. When I started out, I thought I would be a great marketer. I'm a great marketer, but I'm not a great marketer. I can't sell you something. I can convince you to buy something, but I'm not necessarily great. But I'm great for marketing in terms of the culture. I'm a great kind of an essence finder, and certain things go with certain elements or brands. But I'm not the best marketer. I can't convince an Eskimo to buy ice. Right. But I can convince an Eskimo to buy ice cream. So I think you need people around you who can kind of remind you who you are, and who can kind of remind you who your strengths and weaknesses are. Whether it's your mother, because I also believe that sometimes your mother may not know what it is that you want to do, but she'll always be real with you. There's no place like home. Hence, I always say that as a person, have a default factory setting. Like if at first you don't succeed and you feel like the world is coming down hard on you, your default setting is your knees, get down and pray, because at your lowest, you can look up and find many other opportunities as well. So hence I say the world is like Netflix. If at first you don't succeed, find another genre.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, It's an absolute wrap. Thank you so much. It's been incredible, to say the least. It's been engaging and really just flowing with so many important pearls of wisdom. Thank you so much to the panel for joining us tonight. And this has been another exciting edition of the Glenfiddich Challengers Club. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Glenfiddich Challengers Club podcast. Keep an eye open for more inspiring discussions from the Glenfiddich Challengers Club popping up in a city near you. Brought to you by Glenfiddich, the world's most awarded single malt Scotch whiskey.